All right, folks, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of the NFL draft, specifically focusing on the NFC South. We've got some intriguing insights from NFL executives and scouts that you won't want to miss. Buckle up, because we're starting with the Atlanta Falcons, also known as the Dirty Birds. Atlanta Falcons, a bold move. The Falcons made a splash this year with 5 total selections, including 2 in the first round, Jalen Walker and James Pierce from the SEC. They also snagged a couple of defensive backs, Xavier Watson and Billy Bowman, and rounded it out with Wisconsin's longtime starting left tackle, Jack Nelson. But let's zero in on James Pierce, the player that's got everyone talking. One NFC executive raised a red flag, saying, "What concerns me is they gave up a first-rounder for a player with character concerns." That's right, folks. Pierce was considered a divisive figure during the draft process. Sources revealed that he was off multiple teams' draft boards due to maturity issues. This isn't just a passing concern, it's a significant gamble for Falcons GM Terry Fontenot. He traded up, giving away next year's first-round pick, which has fans buzzing. Some might argue that they didn't really lose a first-round pick, they just borrowed it for this year. But let's be real, if Pierce doesn't pan out, it could spell disaster for Fontenot's future in Atlanta. The stakes are high. Imagine this. If James Pierce steps up and helps the Falcons clinch a playoff spot, no one will bat an eye about that first-round pick. But if he flops and the Falcons miss the playoffs for the 5th straight year, it's game over for Fontenot. He's been under .500 since taking the reins in 2021 and has seen his team finish dead last in sacks. The pressure is on, and it's palpable. Now, I admire the guts it took for Fontenot to make this move. Many GMs would shy away from such a risk, especially for a player with a mixed reputation. But that's what makes this so compelling. Will it pay off, or will it haunt him? The potential of James Pierce. An AFC scout chimed in saying, "He's a fun player to watch, very explosive. That's the kind of energy we need." But here's the kicker. Pierce needs the right environment to thrive. We often see young quarterbacks get the blame when things go south, but sometimes it's about the situation they're thrown into. Pierce is no different. He needs a stable organization and a strong locker room culture to flourish. Interestingly, the NFL Players Association recently gave the Falcons an A+ for their management under Raheem Morris, despite a losing season. That's a big deal. Only 2 teams received that grade, and the Falcons were one of them. So, if there's a coach who can harness Pierce's potential and navigate his character concerns, it's Morris. He's proven he can connect with players, and that's crucial for someone like Pierce. The big picture now, let's talk about the trade itself. Some fans think it was a bit rich to give up a first-round pick for Pierce, but let's not forget, they moved back 54 spots from the 2nd round to the 3rd. That's a significant drop. And while some argue they would have picked him at 15 anyway, the reality is they had to sacrifice more to make this happen. So, what do you think? Are you on board with the Falcons' bold move to trade up for James Pierce? It's a high-risk, high-reward situation, and the stakes couldn't be higher for Fontenot and the Falcons. Let's see how this unfolds. All right, let's keep the momentum rolling as we break down the NFC South draft classes. We've already touched on the Falcons, and now it's time to dissect what the other teams brought to the table. Spoiler alert, it's a mixed bag, folks. Carolina Panthers, a risky choice. Starting with the Carolina Panthers, they made 8 picks, kicking things off with the top 10 selection of Ted McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. They also added a couple of pass rushers and Trevor Etienne from Georgia. But here's the kicker. While they were linked to Georgia's Jalen Walker for a while, they ultimately passed on him. Now, I'd love to see a little note printed out and slapped on the back of Jalen Walker's locker, reminding the Panthers of their decision every time they face him. Imagine the nightmares for the Panthers front office if Walker goes off against them twice a season. As for Ted McMillan, I'm not sold. I don't think he's a top 10 talent. In fact, I'd argue he wouldn't have even been a first-round pick in last year's draft. He's not better than Marvin Harrison, Roma Duns, Malik Neighbors, or Brian Thomas. McMillan was fortunate to be in this year's draft class, which was weak at wide receiver. The Panthers are trying to squeeze every ounce of potential out of Bryce Young before they have to make a tough decision on him, so I get the urgency to grab a wide receiver. But let's be real. The best picks for the Panthers might just be Nick Surton out of A&M and defensive end Princely Uman-Milan. Both of those guys have shown more promise than McMillan, in my opinion. New Orleans Saints, a disappointing draft. Now let's shift gears to the New Orleans Saints. And let me tell you, I'm not impressed. I think their draft stinks, like really stinks. Kelvin Banks, their top 10 selection, is not a starting NFL tackle in my book. When he faced tough competition from Michigan and Georgia, he got exposed. Then there's Tyler Show, who's practically ancient. Remember how that went for the Browns with Brandon Weeden? No thanks. The Saints' biggest splash was, of course, Banks, who won NFL executive compared to Laramie Tunsil. I have to disagree. I don't see a 10-year starter at left tackle. I see someone who might bounce around between tackle and guard. I get serious Evan Neal vibes from him, and we all know how that's turned out for the Giants. As for Show, an AFC exec mentioned he was a hot name on day 2. Sure, he's got some of what Kellen Moore likes, intelligence and good makeup, but if the best thing you can say about a quarterback is that he's smart, that's a red flag. I'm not building a trivia team here. I'm building an NFL team. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a familiar face. Now, let's wrap things up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went with Emeka Egbuka, and I'll be honest, I had him in my mock draft, so I'm not surprised. But what does it mean for the Bucs moving forward? As we look at the NFC South as a whole, it's clear that each team has taken a different approach to the draft. Some are swinging for the fences, while others seem to be playing it safe. The question is, will these decisions pay off in the long run? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, this division is going to be a wild ride. All right, let's shift our focus to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who made some intriguing picks this year. I have to say, I felt pretty good about my latest correct prediction when they selected my guy, Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, along with Kansas State corner Jacob Parrish. They rounded out their draft with a couple of defensive players and Tez Johnson from Oregon. Jacob Parrish, a winning pick. Now, let's talk about Jacob Parrish. This third-round corner is being hailed as a winning pick for Tampa. I spoke to a few teams before the draft, and some had him pegged as a sleeper who could go at the end of the first or early in the second round. While others thought that was a stretch, I'm here to tell you, I like this pick. Parrish was a 2-year starter and a 2-time honorable mention in the All-Big 12. He's got incredible speed, and that's becoming increasingly important in today's NFL. With offenses rolling out more 3-wide receiver sets, you need solid corners who can handle the versatility of modern offenses. Running backs are flexing out into the slot, and tight ends are often just oversized receivers now. If you've got a 6'3", 245-pound tight end lined up against you, you better have a corner who can match that physicality. So, I'm all in on the selections of Parrish, Morrison, and Emeka Egbuka for the Buccaneers. I genuinely believe these 3 guys are going to earn second contracts with Tampa. That's a solid draft in my book. Falcons versus Buccaneers, a competitive edge. Now, I know I might come off as biased, but I have to say my favorite draft in the division belongs to the Atlanta Falcons. With picks like Jalen Walker, James Pierce, and Xavier Watson, I see 3 players who will not only start by the end of this season, but also become long-term assets for Atlanta. I can't say the same for 3 players in any other draft class, except maybe the Buccaneers. I genuinely believe Walker and Pierce will outshine Ika and Morrison in the long run. Wrapping it up. So, here's my ranking of the drafts in the NFC South. If you're still with me, do me a solid and hit that thumbs up button on your way out. I appreciate everyone who sticks around until the end of the video.